pregnant woman, a missing child, and a family hiding a terrifying secret deep inside the woods. What starts as a simple accident quickly turns into a nightmare that no one could survive. Because the people offering help aren't trying to save anyone. They're hunting for their next victim. The movie kicks off in Texas, where a man named Matt is traveling with his wife Rachel, who is heavily pregnant and hoping to give birth near her mother's home in the town of Canyon. As they're driving across a remote stretch of road, Matt discovers that the main highway is closed, forcing them to take a shortcut through the wilderness. Everything seems fine until Matt loses focus for a split second and crashes the car. Luckily, neither of them is injured, but when Matt checks the vehicle, he realizes the engine is completely dead. As if things couldn't get any worse, he also discovers there's absolutely no cell service out there. Desperate for help, he climbs a tree trying to get a signal and call someone, anyone. But there's nothing, no reception, no nearby houses, just endless forest in every direction. While looking around, Matt notices a farmhouse not too far away. With no other choice, he and Rachel decide to head there, hoping someone can help them. On the way, they pass a warning sign telling people to stay away because the property is private. But given their situation, they ignore it and continue toward the farm. The moment they arrive, they're greeted by the owner, a gruff man named Bob. He immediately speaks to them with hostility and orders them to leave. Matt quickly explains their situation and asks if Bob could drive them to Canyon. Their car is dead, and the town is far too distant to reach on foot. At first, Bob refuses completely, but the second he notices Rachel is pregnant, his attitude suddenly changes. He asks whether she's having a boy or a girl. When Rachel tells him it's a boy, she begs for help and explains there's no way she can walk that far in her condition. Bob finally agrees to help and radios his wife Agnes. He tells her he has guests with him. At first, she barely seems interested, but as soon as she hears Rachel is pregnant, she tells him to bring them home right away. Bob invites them to stay the night and promises he'll drive them into town the next morning. As Rachel climbs into the truck, she notices a young girl standing far away watching them. The sight feels strange because the farm is surrounded by dense forest and nobody is supposed to live anywhere nearby. When they arrive at the house, Agnes welcomes them, along with her sons David and Luke. Almost immediately, Rachel notices how interested Agnes seems in the baby she's carrying. Agnes shows them to a room where they can rest and tells them she'll call them down for dinner later. The moment Agnes leaves, Rachel quietly makes fun of the woman's clothes and tells Matt they need to leave first thing in the morning. She's already 8 months pregnant and could go into labor at any moment. What Rachel doesn't realize is that Agnes is standing right outside the room, listening to every word, and from the look on her face, she's clearly planning something. A little while later, Rachel opens the window to get some fresh air. Suddenly, she spots the same mysterious girl she saw earlier. But the second Matt looks out the window, the girl completely disappears. Not long after that, Agnes calls them downstairs for dinner. While they're eating, Rachel notices a photograph of the same girl sitting beside Agnes in one of the family pictures. Curious, she asks who the girl is. Agnes explains that her name is Louise and that she adopted her after her biological parents, who supposedly suffered from severe mental illness, abused her for years. Agnes then reveals that she can't have children of her own. David and Luke were adopted as well. Yet she insists she loves all of them, like they were her real children. During dinner, Luke talks about how much he loves his family. But he also admits he's always wanted to see the city because he spent his entire life isolated on the farm and has never really met other people. The second he mentions it, Bob explodes with anger and warns him never to talk about the city again. According to Bob, everyone who lives there is mentally unstable and beyond saving. Later that night, Rachel returns to the room with Matt and admits that something feels very wrong about Bob and Agnes. She can't shake the feeling that they're hiding something, especially because they only agreed to help after learning she was pregnant. She also tells Matt that she's seen Louise twice and finds it incredibly strange that the girl never joined the family for dinner. Matt tries to calm her down and promises they'll leave first thing in the morning. Then suddenly they hear someone outside the room, as if they're being watched. Matt opens the door immediately, but nobody is there. That night, Rachel falls asleep and has a terrifying dream. In the dream, she's alone in the room when she sees Louise sitting nearby crying. The bodies of her parents lie dead in front of her. Then the girl looks directly at Rachel and says something chilling. "My name isn't Louise." Rachel wakes up in complete panic. She suddenly remembers a missing child case that had been all over the news. The girl's real name is Ellie, and she disappeared only a few months ago. Rachel becomes convinced that Bob and Agnes kidnapped her and murdered her family. Even worse, she believes they're planning to kill her and Matt so they can take her unborn baby. Terrified, Rachel insists they have to escape immediately because their lives are in danger. Matt tries reassuring her and promises he won't let anyone hurt her. He tells her it was only a nightmare, nothing more. Eventually, he agrees to leave anyway. The two quietly sneak out of the room, hoping to escape without anyone noticing. Unfortunately, they discover the front door is locked. Matt reaches for the key, but accidentally drops it. The noise alerts Bob, and he instantly realizes they're trying to run away. Matt freezes for a moment before awkwardly thanking Bob for his hospitality and claiming they simply need to leave right now. But the second they step outside, they find Luke and David waiting for them, both armed with rifles. The brothers threaten to kill them if they don't go back inside. Thinking fast, Rachel lies and tells them she already sent a message to her family, and now everyone knows exactly where she is. Before Rachel can finish what she's saying, David suddenly lunges at Matt and smashes him across the head with his rifle. Then he injects him with a sedative to make sure he won't wake up again. Rachel desperately tries to protect her husband, but Bob strikes her in the head as well, and everything goes black. Sometime later, Rachel regains consciousness and finds herself tied to a bed. Agnes calmly sits beside her and explains something horrifying. They aren't going to kill her until after she gives birth to the baby. Rachel immediately starts begging for mercy and calls out for Matt, only to be devastated when Agnes casually tells her that he's already dead. Meanwhile, David and Luke are deep in the woods digging a grave for Matt. But Matt is still alive. Barely. Luke starts feeling guilty about what they're doing and wonders if their real parents died the same way. David instantly snaps at him and warns him never to say that again. If Bob heard him talking like that, he could lock him in the storage shed for a month. The two brothers continue their task, stripping Matt of his clothes, placing him inside a coffin, tossing his lighter in with him, and burying him alive. Back at the house, Rachel is trapped in the room and begins going into labor. Agnes helps deliver the baby, and after an agonizing ordeal, Rachel finally gives birth. But instead of a boy, it's a girl. Agnes is visibly disappointed because she has no interest in raising girls. Rachel immediately fears for her daughter's life. The moment Agnes leaves the room, Rachel quickly slips free from her restraints, grabs a crucifix from the wall, and hides it beside the bed, preparing to defend herself and get her baby back. When Agnes returns, she smugly tells Rachel she's changed her mind. She isn't going to kill the baby after all. She's decided to raise her herself. Rachel explodes with rage and slams the crucifix into Agnes's head. But before she can escape, David grabs her. The rest of the family rushes in and ties her back down to the bed. Rachel demands to know why they're doing this when she never heard any of them. Agnes calmly explains that they're a deeply religious family. They kidnap children so they can raise them away from what they believe is a corrupt world filled with immorality, false idols, and sin. In their minds, they're saving souls and doing God's work. Rachel ignores the twisted explanation and turns to David and Luke. She reminds them that the Bible forbids murder. Yet Agnes killed their real mothers, proving she's not the righteous woman she pretends to be. Rachel warns them that Agnes is mentally unstable and could easily turn on them someday too. Before Rachel can say anything else, Agnes orders the boys to move her into the storage shed. They chain her up there so she can continue nursing her baby. Then they reveal their plan. Once the child turns 2 years old and no longer needs her mother, they'll kill Rachel and dispose of her. At that exact moment, Matt wakes up underground. He realizes he's trapped inside a coffin buried beneath the earth. Panic sets in. Then he notices the lighter beside him and sees cracks running through the wood. Using every ounce of strength he has left, he smashes through the coffin and claws his way out of the grave. Eventually, he crawls onto the forest floor, gasping for air. The next day, Rachel desperately tries breaking the chains holding her captive, but they're far too strong. Elsewhere, Matt wanders through the woods searching for help until he comes across two men sitting together. He tells them an unbelievable story about being kidnapped, buried alive, and having his wife held captive. The men laugh and assume he's drunk. Matt keeps pleading for help and begs to borrow a phone so he can call the police and save Rachel and their baby. Instead, they tell him the nearest vehicle is miles away. Furious and desperate, Matt attacks both men, ties them to a tree, steals clothes from one of them, and demands directions to Bob's farm. Once they tell him where it is, he tosses them a knife so they can free themselves and heads off alone. Back at the farm, Agnes is trying to put Rachel's baby to sleep when David and Luke approach her with a disturbing idea. They suggest getting Rachel pregnant again so she can give birth to the son Agnes wanted. Agnes is horrified and immediately rebukes them, reminding them that adultery is forbidden. Then she throws them out of the room. Angry and frustrated, the brothers make a decision of their own. They plan to go to the storage shed and assault Rachel before Agnes finds out. At that very moment, Matt finally reaches the farm. Ellie silently points him toward the storage shed where Rachel is being held. When David and Luke enter the shed and move toward Rachel, Matt bursts in and attacks them with a metal bar. Within moments, both brothers are dead. Rachel breaks down in tears and tells Matt that Agnes and Bob have taken their baby. She begs him to help her get their daughter back and escape. Matt promises they'll save her and immediately frees Rachel from the chains. The second they step outside, they come face to face with Bob. Without hesitation, Bob fires his rifle. The shot hits Matt and kills him right in front of Rachel. She screams in horror and tries to run, but Bob catches her and knocks her unconscious. The following day, Rachel wakes up, chained inside the storage shed once again. This time, Ellie is chained beside her. Quietly, Ellie hands Rachel a nail and helps her start working free from the restraints. Rachel realizes this is her chance and becomes determined to escape. Meanwhile, Agnes is unable to accept that David and Luke are dead. She sits beside their bodies, treating their wounds as though they might wake up. Eventually, Bob arrives and tells her the truth. Their sons are gone and need to be buried. Agnes collapses emotionally and insists on burying them herself. Later, she and Bob lay the boys to rest before Bob returns to the house and leaves her alone with her grief. Using the nail, Eventually, he enters the house and finds Rachel holding her daughter. Bob threatens to kill her unless she puts the baby back in bed. He warns her that if Agnes comes home and sees her holding the child, she'll murder her without hesitation. Rachel stays surprisingly calm and offers him a deal. She'll sleep with him if he lets her leave with the baby. After a moment of hesitation, Bob agrees and sets his rifle down. The second he does, Rachel attacks, driving a knife deep into his stomach. Once she's sure he's dead, she grabs his phone and discovers something shocking. There's a signal. Immediately, she sends a voice message to the police, telling them exactly where she is, explaining that the family murdered her husband and kidnapped both her and her baby. Then Rachel looks out the window and sees Agnes approaching the house. Realizing there's no time left, she grabs Ellie and her daughter and rushes toward Bob's truck. Unfortunately, the vehicle won't start. Left with no other option, Rachel decides she has to stop Agnes herself. She tells Ellie to take the baby and run if anything happens. Then she grabs Bob's rifle and prepares for a final confrontation. Rachel and Agnes exchange gunfire as they move across the property. During the chaos, Agnes sees an opportunity and rushes toward the baby. Rachel tackles her before she can get there. The two women fight brutally until Rachel finally overpowers her. Again and again, she slams Agnes's head into the ground until she stops moving. Moments later, Rachel retrieves her daughter and escapes the farm with Ellie. Eventually, police officers and paramedics arrive at the scene and begin asking questions. Rachel explains that Bob's family kidnapped her, murdered her husband, and stole her child. Suddenly, Agnes appears one final time, somehow still alive. She raises a rifle and aims directly at Rachel. Fortunately, the police spot her first and open fire, killing her instantly. As Rachel finishes telling her story, she explains that Ellie was also kidnapped years ago and that she managed to save her too. One of the paramedics asks where Ellie is. Rachel turns in confusion because Ellie is standing right beside her, yet nobody else can see her. That's when the horrifying truth finally becomes clear. Ellie had been dead the entire time. Rachel had been seeing her spirit all along. The girl's body had been buried near the graves of Agnes's sons years earlier. As the paramedics lead Rachel toward the ambulance, she breaks down over Matt's death, devastated that her husband is gone, devastated that her newborn daughter will grow up without a father. And with that, the movie comes to an end. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit the bell so you never miss an update. And make sure to check out the previous movie summaries. I'll see you in the next video. Hope you're doing well. Bye.